Hi, I'm Sarah with Lavender Buttons Design, and today I'm going to show you how to paint with Sharpies, which gives you this super cool sort of watercolor alcohol ink faux look. So let's get started. The materials you'll need today are going to be Sharpies in a variety of colors. I happen to have a lot. If you only have a few, that's totally okay too. You just have less options when it comes to making your painting. You're going to want a high content isopropyl alcohol. So this is just rubbing alcohol. I had 99%, so I went ahead and used that. I know the higher the alcohol percentage is, then the better the blending will be. You're gonna want something to put your alcohol in. So I'm just gonna use this little shot glass here because it's small and I don't care if I get Sharpie in it. Either a paintbrush or an eyedropper if you happen to have one to apply the alcohol. And then for your surfaces that you're going to paint, you want to make sure whatever you have is going to be very smooth and non-porous. So ceramic works really great, like these ceramic tiles. You have a picture frame that you don't care too much about, you can do that. Take the glass out. I think a mirror would be cool. I didn't have one, but I would love to see if one of you guys does that. And then when I was experimenting, I actually experimented on this vase too, so it was pretty straightforward to do on a 3D surface. You just kind of, treat it like it's a bunch of 2D surfaces and rotate it around. All right, to get started, I'm going to show you first on the ceramic tile because I think it's going to be easier to see on this bright white. You're going to take your Sharpies and you're just going to kind of color in splotches. You don't have to be super neat or perfect with it because we're going to blend it all together later anyway. Try to get your sections close to each other, but not bleeding into each other quite yet because you don't want to ruin your Sharpies. Saturated our tile with Sharpie. We're ready to put on the rubbing alcohol and blend our colors. So I'm gonna get my brush pretty saturated because what you want is you want to create little drips off the bristles. You're not going to actually touch the bristles to the surface of the tile because that's going to pick up the ink from the tile and it's just going to contaminate the color of your alcohol ink. So I'm going to start by putting my ink onto kind of the joints of my colors here so that they start their blending. You don't want to get too heavy on the application of the alcohol because what will happen is it's just going to overblend and become this kind of muddy, mucky mess. But the great thing about the rubbing alcohol is that it dries really fast. So if you kind of get started and you realize there's things you want to change about it, you can go back in after it dries and apply another layer. Now that I'm happy with the amount of initial blending that's happened, I'm just going to let it dry for a few minutes, then I can come back through and do a second round. So now that my surface is dry, if there's any areas that I don't particularly like how it blended, I can go back in and add a few more drops of the rubbing alcohol, but be really careful in this part because it can get out of hand pretty quickly and, go back to that muddy mess we talked about. So for example, I don't particularly like this corner, so I'm going to add another drop to just kind of lighten that patch up so it's not so magenta all in that area. If you're happy with your second round, you just let it dry again. So This is the glass for my picture frame. I put just a piece of plain white paper behind it so that way it's easier for you all to see what I'm doing. That being said, because glass is clear, right, and it doesn't have that stark background that the ceramic tiles do, I recommend sticking with more darker toned Sharpies for projects like this. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start coloring off sections with my Sharpies. So my glass piece here, it's all dried, and I'm feeling like there's some areas that are a little bit more washed out than I'd like them to be. So I'm actually going to take Sharpie again and go back over them and, you know, kind of fill them in a bit more, especially on the glass because it's clear. Things just don't get quite as vibrant as, you know, they do on a ceramic or porcelain surface. So I'm just going to kind of smooth in here. I'm going to make sure this part isn't too streaky because I might not blend it back out with the alcohol. So now that we've let everything dry and we're satisfied with the number of coats we've done and the number of droplets, here's my final result of that glass piece. So I just put mine back in the frame with a piece of white paper behind it. I put the ink part on the inside of the glass so that way nothing scratches it off, because this is not the most permanent of processes. But yeah, so I chose to leave mine with a white space here. I think I'm going to end up using it as kind of like a whiteboard, dry erase board. This is one of the tiles that I made today for you all. Just love these like jewel tones. They turn out so nicely. This is the other one that I did. I think this one got a little bit too washed out, but I could always go back like we talked about and do, you know, more layers in there. Keep in mind that this painting technique we did today isn't going to be scratch proof. So it'll hold up fairly well, but you'll notice if you set anything on it, it might, you know, pull some of that paint back up. So I highly recommend that you get some kind of clear coat for it, maybe like a polyacrylic or some of that, you know, spray paint, clear gloss stuff would work really well. And that's our project. So again, if you enjoyed this video, please, please, please like it and share it and follow me. And let me know if you made these. I'd love to see them. Thanks, guys.